Hello. Today we're going to talk about financial planning, what it is, and kind of the different aspects of financial planning. So, to get started, let's go ahead and jump into it. So, when we talk about financial planning, there's really seven key categories that we're going to discuss today and kind of dig a little bit deeper into them. Really, what we're looking at is like financial health, which is going to be your cash flow, your budget, risk, which is an insurance kind of management side of financial planning, investments, which is your portfolio, so your investment portfolio, how it's allocated to the types of accounts, the type of tax ramifications, retirement, what your retirement goals are, what your spending retirement goals are, the time frame you want to retire, how long you want to live in retirement, taxes, how to mitigate taxes now, and also how to pay less taxes in the future, estate planning. So essentially just making sure there is a plan in place for when you eventually pass away, and then education planning, how to fit in college planning into every other aspect of your financial life and kind of make that a priority. So when we talk about financial planning, I feel like a lot of times people think it's just retirement or it's just investments or it's just kind of making a budget. But in reality, it encompasses all of these things working together uniformly to build out a plan and to make sure you are optimizing everything you can do with what you have in income and what your savings. So jumping into this first one, financial health. So we're looking at things like net worth, cash flow, budget, debt to income, but all of this is really going to be built around kind of that cash flow page. Your net worth is going to show how much you're worth, your house, your assets, cars, investment accounts, retirement accounts. But really, cash flow, budget, and debt to income ratio are those key figures for financial health. Do you have a budget? Do you know what you spend? Do you know what you save? Do you know what your discretionary expenses are? Do you have a lot of debt to what your income is? We have another video on building a budget. Please check that out for looking at how to build a budget, your debt to income ratio, what that needs to be. Typically, you want to keep that debt to income ratio below 36%. So if you take that debt to income ratio, you want it to be below that 36. If you start creeping up to where a large portion of your monthly income goes to debt payments, so car, mortgage, student loans, you really want to start kind of working those down to get your financial health a little bit better. Now, second, it's going to be risk management. This is primarily looking at insurance. Emergency savings are part of it, but insurance is going to be what you're typically looking at from a risk standpoint. This is not risk when we're talking about investment account risk. This is more trying to mitigate risk from a kind of liability, but a liability outside of our control risk. So, life insurance, is your family going to be okay if something happens to you? Do you have disability insurance, home insurance, auto insurance, umbrella insurance? Do you know what'll happen? Do you have E&O insurance? If you have a lot of assets and you have people over, is umbrella a part of your plan? Do you have it? Do you have enough of it? All of these things kind of come into play. You can definitely lean on the overinsured side, but for the most part, what you want to do is get the most cost effective coverage you can from an insurance standpoint. Typically, we are not firm believers in using insurance related products from an investment management standpoint. We typically view insurance related products as being a risk mitigation tool. So, not necessarily looking at getting like a whole life policy with an investment kind of add on as part of your retirement plan, but getting maybe a term life policy to mitigate just the loss of life and loss of income risk. And then using what you'd save on that policy to invest from an investment side. But it's kind of making sure you have the proper amount of coverage, you have enough coverage, but you're not over covered. So you're not just paying an unnecessary amount to a risk mitigation tactic. Now, third, and arguably probably the most common next to retirement, is going to be investments. And so, investment management is typically what you might hear it as. So, you have a couple different ways you kind of look at it. One's going to be account type. So, how are your assets invested? Are they in Roth IRAs? Are they in pre-tax IRAs, 401ks, Roth 401ks? Are they in taxable brokerage accounts? Then from an investment allocation, how risky or conservative are you? Are you close to retirement and you don't want to take a lot of risk? Are you really far away from retirement and you do want to take a lot of risk? Maybe you're somewhere in between there. And then from the investment account standpoint, it's okay, well, what's going to be the most advantageous to avoid taxes now or avoid taxes in the future. But that's going to bleed over into our tax section as well. So jumping over here, let's just hit retirement first. Now, retirement, you're kind of looking at questions of when do you want to retire? How much do you want to spend in retirement? How much do you need to save in order to hit that spending goal in retirement? And where's the best way to save? So when you're talking about retirement, it's more than just, oh, well, I'm going to retire at 65. You have to look at things like your spending behaviors, taxes, and inflation. How long do you plan on living? Does everyone in your family live until 100? Or does everyone typically pass away in their late 80s? What does that look like? Because if it's 100, well, you need a plan for that extra 15 years possibly. Look at kind of market volatility with your investments. How are you prepared for that? But I mean, you have to really kind of have an idea of not only that retirement time frame of like 65, 62, 67, 55, whatever that might be, but then what you're going to spend every month in retirement, what you want that retirement to look like. And I mean, a lot of people say they want to travel, they want to see family. What you really want to think about is, well, you're going from working maybe 40 to 60 hours a week. That's not going to be there. You're going to have a lot of time on your hands. How do you want to spend a random Tuesday in July or every Monday, Thursday morning? What does that look like? And you want to plan that out. So it's a lot more that goes into it than just the financial side, but thinking through all the different factors in the financial side are really, really important when we're talking about retirement. It's much more than a single transition. It's really a 25 to 30 year period that you need to make sure not only do you have enough in assets to cover the income you'll need, but then how do those assets continue to grow? Because again, 30 years is a long time. It's not like you're retiring at 65 and suddenly you don't have to have anything invested anymore. You'll still need that account value to grow a little bit as well to cover inflation, taxes, and your normal spending. And we didn't even talk about healthcare at that standpoint, too. So healthcare is going to be up there as well. Taxes. So, how do I pay the least amount of taxes now? And how do I pay the least amount of taxes in the future? So, a lot of this is going to be determined by the type of account you choose from the investment management side of things. So, is it the Roth IRA or a pre tax IRA or a taxable account or a 401k? Whenever you have Roth, what happens is you pay taxes on the money you contribute. But once you contribute the money, it grows tax free. So when you're in retirement, you do not have to pay taxes on the money you're distributing from that Roth account. Whereas with a pre tax account or a 401k, you might see it as traditional for IRA or pre tax 401k. You don't pay taxes on the money you contribute, but it grows tax deferred. And then you pay taxes in retirement. However, since you aren't paying taxes now, it lowers your tax burden this year, the year you make a contribution. So typically, the argument is the younger you are and the less you make, the more advantageous Roth IRAs are or Roth 401ks are. As you start to get older and as you start to make more, which moves you into a higher tax bracket, the more advantageous pre tax accounts are. So a traditional IRA or a pre tax 401k. The reason being, especially if we look at this chart here, so this person getting into their 40s is starting to hit that top section here in gray where they're in this higher tax bracket. Well, if you look, the probability is in retirement, they will not be in quite as high of a tax bracket. So, what you want to do is avoid as much tax you're paying. Let's say hypothetically, this tax bracket is 25%, but in retirement, they're going to be in a 15 or a 10%. Well, we don't want to be paying 25, so let's try and avoid it. If they did Roth IRA here, well, they're paying 25 only to avoid a 10 or 15 in retirement, and it just doesn't make sense. So, estate planning. This is one that a lot of people think is just, oh, I have a will, or, oh, my kids or my spouse know what to do. I've told them. It's a lot more than that because a lot of these things between trusts, beneficiaries, charitable giving, living wills, power of attorneys, medical directives, they're really important. If one, you can't say anything for yourself if you're in a medical emergency and you need medical directives, like pull the plug type language, resuscitate type language, having a medical power of attorney or financial power of attorney. If something does happen to you, you become disabled, this is something that allows someone to make transactions on your behalf. Having that in place makes it very easy on your family members. Having a will or a trust in place that dictates how you want your assets to be divided or helps avoid the probate process, having beneficiaries that can help avoid the probate process. So, I mean, all of this starts with a basic estate plan, but what you're really doing is one, with beneficiaries and trusts, trying to avoid as much probate cost as possible for your heirs. And with a will, living will, power of attorneys, you're making it easy on your family if something were to happen to you from a disability standpoint or you passing away. So with estate planning, a lot more goes into it than just a will. But really, I think the hardest thing is it's nothing you're doing is really benefiting you in retirement. What it's doing is benefiting your family, because the last thing your family wants to think about after you've passed away is what they need to do with your assets, trying to find assets, trying to get everything pushed through probate. If you can make that process as easy as possible by making sure beneficiaries are on accounts, making sure your will is clear, making sure your family knows where your will is, they know where your accounts are, having a basic written out plan of what to do, that makes that process so much smoother, and it is so much easier on a grieving family because they do not have to sit and try and think through something that more than likely they're not going to fully have a good picture of right off the bat. And it is a very complicated process. So anything from an estate planning side that can be done prior to disability or you passing is an absolutely great thing that pays tons of dividends to your family and loved ones. And a lot of these too are very easy. Creating a will you can do online, it's very quick. Adding beneficiaries is almost instantaneous in some cases. It's very, very easy, and it makes passing accounts very easy. Trust can get a little bit more complicated. You would need to meet with an attorney for a trust, but they can provide a lot of benefit as well. And charitable giving or planning out how you want your assets to be distributed can be very helpful as well from that standpoint. Lastly, is going to be college planning. So, a couple of things with college planning. I know this graphic has 10 things you can think about, and there's a lot of things that go into college planning. From a financial planning standpoint, you want to look at a couple of things. So, one, college accounts. Do you want to use a 529 account? Do you want to use a Coverdell ESA, an UTMA, or an UGMA account? So, kind of making a decision on which one of those is going to be best for you. Looking at scholarships, starting to plan that out, planning out financial aid, how those different account types affect financial aid, whether or not you want to plan for student loans. So, all of these kind of go into play as you start to have children. You want to plan out, well, all right, how much of college do we want to cover? Do we want to cover 50% of it? Do we need to plan on saving enough in a 529 account to cover 2 years of college? Do we want to plan on really pushing scholarships? Do we want to really go for financial aid? Do we want to try and do student loans? What does that process look like? And then there's a ton of other not financial related aspects of it, as far as career engagement, college comparison, kind of what your child wants from that standpoint. Do they want to be in state, out of state? So a lot goes into college planning, and it's also typically happening when you're trying to balance retirement planning. And back to my point is, when you're talking about financial planning, it's very easy to say, I have a 401k I'm taking care of, or we did X with my investments we're taking care of, or I have a pension I'm taking care of, or Social Security's there I'm taking care of. And in reality, that's not what financial planning is. It's taking a holistic view of everything going on in your financial life and saying, all right, is it optimized? Is it optimized for what I want it to do? Because it's not necessarily about kind of trying to stretch. It's just trying to say, all right, with what I have, with what I want to do, am I doing everything within my power to make that the most efficient and get the most out of my money? Am I getting the most out of my budget, the most out of my investments? Am I minimizing my taxes as much as possible? Am I making sure my kids are set up from an education standpoint? Am I making sure my family's set up if anything were to happen to me from an estate planning standpoint and an insurance planning standpoint? So it's looking at all of these at the same time and really making sure we're trying to fire on all cylinders while keeping your end goal in mind. And that changes throughout your life. So it's not a one and done thing either, where you can create a financial plan when you're 35 and it'll be the same when you're 55. your goals are going to change, your life is going to change, your income's going to change. All of these different aspects of your plan will change over time. So it's developing those in a uniformed way and then making sure you're keeping up to date with it. Either way, I hope this has been helpful for you guys. Please feel free to check out our other videos. We're going to get more in depth on each one of these categories and go through some more stuff. But again, thanks for watching.